Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast, where we explore cutting-edge strategies to keep teams human-centered, drive innovation, and empower you with the tools and insights needed to help your team excel and thrive in today's rapidly changing world. Your host is Dane Groeneveld, a seasoned expert with over 20 years of experience enhancing team dynamics and innovation. Today, Dane is joined by Pete Schramm. Pete is a serial entrepreneur, award-winning speaker, and best-selling author passionate about connecting people and fostering intentional, meaningful relationships in the workplace. As the founder of Lattitude, Pete drives employee engagement through leadership development, mentorship, and career mapping software that supports new employee retention and prepares individuals for promotions. In this conversation, Pete shares insights on career mapping, personal advisory boards, and the role of mentorship in guiding individuals through their professional journeys. He and Dane discuss how organizations can empower employees by providing them with the tools and support to take ownership of their growth and development. With a focus on mentorship networks, career development strategies, and fostering intentional growth, this episode offers valuable takeaways for everyone looking to make meaningful strides in their careers. So, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're here to inspire your next collaborative breakthrough. Gather your team or put on your headphones, and let's dive in together.
Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane Groeneveld, CEO of the Huddle 3 Group. And today I'm joined by Pete Schramm. Pete's been introduced to me by a good friend, Jeffrey Roach, also a fellow guest of the podcast. And he's doing some great work in and around navigating career maps and building personal boards of advisors. So we're going to talk more about that today. But as CEO and co-founder of Lattitude and the author of Pathfinders, I'd like to welcome Pete to the show.
Dane, thanks for having me. And Jeffrey, thanks for connecting the dots as always.
Yeah, I love, that's one of the funnest things about building this podcast is just finding all that connective tissue, all of these great people that are doing things that are important to, advancement of teams and advancement of people through their careers. It's super fun.
And as we were talking before the show kicked off, green room as we like to refer to it, there's a ton of alignment in this. And it really just comes down to people helping people. Yeah. We both get fired up about that stuff. Why not do more of it? Why not make it easier?
Yeah, that's it. So with that, tell us a little bit more about you. How did you come to be doing this impactful work?
Yeah, growing up on a farm in Western Pennsylvania, my parents said, hey, our purpose here is to better the lives of others. And I said to myself, cool. How in the world do I do that? By picking sweet corn and shoveling manure. And so it was just an exploratory journey of where can I go? Who can I meet? What are the different opportunities out there? So these bits of career map, personal board, it's all trial and error. Believe it or not, I didn't pick up a book, at farmer's market and it says, oh, Pete, do this, do this, do this. I wish. And I wrote a book that can help walk through each of those steps. But through sports, being, able to play high school and college, track, basketball, a couple of different sports as I was studying engineering, I kept meeting new people, learning about different opportunities out there, figuring out, hey, what do you do? What do you like? Would you have changed it? What else are your options from this point? And then as I kept talking to more folks, I'm like, okay, that's the place that I want to go work. Went, found a job, got into a big defense contractor. And one of the first things I asked my boss was, how can I be the best employee you ever had? And he said, well, go find yourself a mentor. A lot of these successful people, above him even, said that they attributed their success to being around great people. I said, cool, I'm going to go find one. And then Dane, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know where to find one. I didn't know what to ask. So a lot of this more trial and error. And I would literally knock on the doors of people's office, peeking, hey, you got a second? Hey, I learning about this mentoring thing. You ever do mentoring? You have a mentor before? And some of them would be like, oh yeah, let me tell you. Some of them would say, not now, come back later. And some would be like, get out, I'm on a phone call. What are you doing? Who goes about things like that? And so then it got to a point where I figured if one mentor was good, how about a couple of them, right? Diversifying these insights, guidance. And I didn't know that I was, building on this concept that's over a century old of a personal board of advisors, personal board of directors, some people call it. And then it got to a point where people were helping me, I was helping others, but I didn't have enough time. I didn't know all the answers. So I'm like, we got to start a company. We got to bring some process and structure to this. And that's where Lattitude spawned from.
Love it. The engineering degree had to come into use somewhere there, didn't it?
Two of them. So I decided to go back and get a master's in mechanical engineering. The thought process and the work hard through the frustrating, difficult times definitely has paid off. But, a little secret, I have 2 degrees in mechanical engineering. I've never had a job in mechanical engineering.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's more about the muscle you build than the direct application for so many people when it comes to learning and development education.
And the thinking process. Can you work through things? And you think, it's applicable. I did it because it was the most transferable technical degree that could give me the most opportunity for success. I want to go into legal. I want to go into medical. I want to go into, tech. I want to go into, I didn't even know what consulting was. My dream was to go into energy, right? To help people and bring goodness to them in that capacity. Energy companies never called me back whenever I applied. So we went elsewhere.
That's very cool. And it sounds like there's been a bit of a lifelong excitement for hacks. Like, I love the way that you described, hey, mechanical engineering is very transferable. Finding mentors is the way for me to build my success and influence in the team. Like, that's what people need to be thinking of.
We don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part. And being okay, being vulnerable. Say, hey, right? Knock on those doors. Maybe you're not in an office. Maybe you're not at one of those water coolers. Remember those back in the day?
Yeah.
Whenever you could walk up and fill, you just run into people. But how might you say, hey, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with my career. Can you just share your story with me? Super. People love talking about themselves.
Yeah, it really it taps into what they're proud of and their ego and their excitement, and so you're going to be able to get a lot more from those conversations.
100%.
That's super cool. So this whole concept of asking the question, how can I be the best employee you've ever had? That's not the way a lot of young people look at a conversation with a leader. Where did that spark from?
I think it was my upbringing, right?
Yeah.
My parents, dad was in the military and farming background. Mom was in banking with a farming background.
Yeah.
And it's the mindset of continuous improvement, right? If you're going to do something, you don't half-ass it. And you also get an opportunity to learn, right? Because my definition of what good looks like might be different than my boss at that time, his definition of what good looks like.
Yeah. So
I figure, hey, ask that question. What's the worst that happens? He tells me something I don't know, or I don't want you to be great. I don't want you to be good. So I figured let's aim for the stars. I also think the, athletic background instilled that competitive spirit in me. So do I need to be better than the next guy or girl? Not necessarily, but I'm competing with myself. And how can I push myself to go a little farther, go a little longer, go a little harder? And I look at it from a challenge and opportunity.
Yes.
Right? Where are those challenges that can unlock new opportunities to get outside of my comfort zone to ultimately help others?
Yeah. Actually, my coach recently gave me a book. It's all about the empowerment dynamic. And it talks about a lot of people getting caught in the victim orientation of, hey, I'm new here. I don't know anything. No one values me. I'm the victim, to, the empowerment dynamic of, hey, there's someone who could be a coach. Here's someone who's challenging me to grow. Here's my opportunity. And you're using very much that language. It's a much more exciting way to, I think, harness the power of all of your team members if you can drive that philosophy.
Well, that gets into the personal board of advisors a little bit, and always up for swapping book tales. And I got to give a quick shout out to Dan McGinn and Psyched Up, orange cover.
Yeah.
Psyched Up, if you've read it before.
I haven't,
it's
but I'll
the
check
number
it out.
one recommend. I think I probably bought like 15 copies for different people over the years. Got to talk to him a couple of times, and it's how people flip the script on those big opportunities. What am I going to do with these nerves before this interview? All right, well, we can take a positive approach or a negative approach. What am I going to do before, Kobe Bryant shoots a free throw? Malcolm
Yeah.
Gladwell sits down at the computer. Anesthesiologist gets ready to go into a surgery. And you can have those nerves bring you down, or you can say, yes, great opportunity. And then whenever the bad stuff happens, do you take that approach of boo-hoo, woe is me? Or do you say this is a learning opportunity and say, okay, step back. Maybe it hurts. It can still hurt. I'm not saying that, this is a, pain goes away mindset. But it's from that growth mindset and that learning mentality.
Yeah, that's very cool. So that learning opportunity is what you started to kind of bottle through going out and finding these mentors. Mm-hmm. And I know pre-show you were saying, once I realized how it was helping me, I started figuring out why aren't others having the same access, the same experience as what I've just had. So talk me through a little bit more about that moment and how it led you into the keynote speaking and the platform and the book.
By accident. That's what I'd say, right? So some of these different folks were guiding me, developing me, 10, 20 years my senior. And they said, hey, here's this other person that, 3 years younger than you in your organization. Can you just have a conversation with them? Talk to them about your experiences. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then that person started referring to me as their mentor. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm not ready to do this mentoring thing yet.
Yeah.
And then they said, hey, would you talk to my friend? And then it, repeated. And then it got to a point where they're like, Pete's the mentoring guy. I'm like, I'm the what? I guess there's worse names out there. But it was a cool piece. And I said, all right, well, I guess what I'm doing doesn't stink entirely. So let's figure out how we can, what do you learn in a big organization? SOP, structure, Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah.
So I said, I got to lean out this process and figure out how we can do some Six Sigma here. I don't have all the answers. It's not totally figured out yet, but gosh, have we gotten some progress and we've made a bunch of great steps. So from there, then people would say, hey, can you talk to this group of individuals about this mentorship thing? And so at some point along the way, I developed a comfort in being uncomfortable in front of a group of people. And I think that was one of the, kind of voluntold I used to, read at church whenever I was growing up, whether I wanted to or not, be like, the lector's out sick. Pete, you're voluntold. Get on up there. I gotta check what I'm going to be reading. But it's that piece again of challenge and opportunity. Yeah. And so they'd say, hey, come speak to this group of, new employees or, college students or high school students. Hey, would you come speak at this conference, at this symposium? I'm like, yeah, sure. Be on a panel, facilitate this. Okay, cool. And the way I approach it is until they stop enjoying it and finding value and asking questions and being engaged, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So you almost became a catalyst in the organization. If your mentors are asking you to help with other people they see in the org, they were putting you to work rather than you going out and saying, hey, do you want a mentor? And there's something powerful in that equation or formula.
I think it's also the human capital and that warm introduction where we say, hey, I know Jeffrey. Jeffrey knows you. Jeffrey says, hey, Dane and Pete, you got to have a conversation together. And that power, I don't care if it's in mentorship. I don't care if it's in sales. I don't care if it's in just exploratory informational interviews. Yeah. That warm handoff goes so far. Yeah. And I think if others aren't aware of what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go, what we're curious about, and we don't ask, then how in the world are they supposed to check? I haven't been around a whole lot of mind readers or psychics in my time.
No.
If you know some, I'd love to pick their brain.
Yeah. We had actually a guest on the show recently, Patrick Salimi, and he talked a lot about a referral network that he's built.
Yeah.
And the whole program is you need to do a warm handoff and you need to tell stories of each other. So if I'm like, hey, Jeffrey, you need to meet Pete, in reverse of what actually happened. Yeah. And then say, I'm going to get you guys on a call. I want to tell you about all this great stuff that Pete does. It just compounds the trust. And it means that we start from a far more sort of accelerated and elevated level of
I think it's
activity.
2 pieces, right? It's a much more sound foundation. I
Yeah.
learned in engineering that you got to have a sound foundation in order to build, right?
Yeah.
And it accelerates exactly the pace of everything that's able to build. And if it's a no, right, it's okay. We might say, hey, this sounds great on paper. We get into a conversation. Same thing happens with potential mentors.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, it's pretty cool. Like you, good person.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll go anywhere from here. And I think that's a big takeaway. I think you had some guests that talked about networking as well.
Yeah.
And to meet somebody, I've been on plenty of conversations where I say, hey, how can I help you? And then oftentimes they'll ask the same thing. Say, let's just, stay in touch. There's this tool LinkedIn out there.
Yeah.
Couple of, I guess it's over 1 billion people now. Let's just do that. I don't have a specific ask for you. Something comes to mind when, people bring up, engagement surveys, career mapping, mentorship software, employee retention. Just keep us in mind. Check out the book. But I'm here to be an advocate and really help others. Simple as that. No bridges burned and a, small bond developed.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The human connection is something that's lacking for so many of us too. So just finding ways to weave it back in, not frivolously, not like, hey, we're just out networking for the sake of it, but because it's all part of building that connective tissue around helping each other go forwards. I really like that.
And I think the in-person human piece too, because how many folks just, hide behind this thing.
Yeah.
And you see it and you're kind of like, oh dear, what in the world has happened to, and sometimes, I'll hang out on my phone. I do plenty of things on there, right? So I'm not perfect, but even at networking events, you'll see different people that are just off in the corner and they're just, heads down. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a great opportunity here. Go to the line in the bar. Even if you're not getting a drink, you get a glass of water and put a lime in there.
Yeah.
You don't like lime, get a lemon.
Yeah.
Right? And just talk to the person in front of you. What brought you here? I have a whole chapter in the book where I talk about networking. I think I have 8 different personas of people at networking events. You don't want to be the wallflower.
No.
Thinking about those different pieces of it. But the art of being able to walk up to somebody at an event and a cold hello, as long as you do it with intention and you're genuine and you're curious and you're seeking first to understand, seems like a good equation for success.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I've got an interesting view on the wallflowers, though, which is when I go into one of those rooms, I look for them and I try and engage them because I'm like, something's brought this person here and something's keeping them from interacting with others. I really want to know their story. And I've found some of my most powerful connections and relationships have developed from those moments.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Talk about the same kind of piece, and it's a big part of the mantra.
Yeah.
We're all in this, right? Was it one of the quotes? Rising tides raise all ships.
Yeah, absolutely. So before the show, we started talking about diversity as well. So it's not just going and picking one mentor. It's a group. It's that board of advisors. What was it that informed that for you personally in your experience, and how have you kind of created the process and structure for it to be part of the pathfinding, approach?
So I'm going to do a boomerang example. We're going to go way out on this one. Growing up, Dad would tell me stories about being in the Army. And he talked about how they used to give, salt packs and cigarettes in the lunch packages. And his mindset was, well, if whatever they gave me is good, then a couple are probably better. Come to find out later, a couple is not particularly great in that. So he said, then he switched to, okay, if, I have to do a couple of push-ups, maybe I do more push-ups and that's better. And so this piece of, if a few's good of a good thing, right? I learned that, not all more is created equal. Then why don't we build on that? So the same thing with mentorship. Okay, I like this perspective. And sometimes I wanted to cross-check it. It's not that I disagreed. It's that I was still curious. I liken it to being in sponge mode, soaking up all this information. I still am. There's a lot that I don't know, always looking to learn more. And this opportunity to give a TED Talk in front of thousands of people, they asked me to talk about mentorship. I'm like, okay, well, anybody can talk about it, but how can we innovate, right? Always push it, challenge an opportunity, challenge myself to go beyond what's been done before, or maybe make it better, right? Let's iterate on it. Let's think a little bit differently. And so that was where I test drove on a fairly large stage for me, this idea of, hey, let's surround ourselves with a couple of different people. If one's good, okay, cool. But what if, we have that person who's a functional mentor? They've been in our shoes before. Cool. What about a cross-functional mentor? I'm an engineer. This is somebody in, HR, legal, comms, marketing. What about a champion? That split level, that's a couple levels ahead of us. Ally. Am I an ally? Or can somebody be an ally? The advocate, somebody that's brings sponsorship to life, the super connector. So it's these couple of different people, and we're not going to necessarily ask all the same questions to each of these individuals, but figuring out how can, whenever it comes to my growth and development and also the reciprocity piece, right, how can I be helpful to them? And this brings into the equation, the career map. Some of these different guides are going to be bottoms up, providing guidance. Some of them are going to be top down, beginning with the end in mind. So it's a way to, and then also you give feedback, hey, asking, board seat member 1, 2, 3, 4, a similar question. And you say, hey, what if you, heard this approach to it? Maybe it's what somebody else said, right? And they might say, oh, that's even better. Or I didn't think about it. So the people around you can benefit from one another. Right?
Yes.
That's another piece of, just like you said before, connection, helping people.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. So you do the TED Talk and you start building out some of those roles. I know before the show you talked about it becomes the who, where, and what. The who can help me, where can I grow, and what can I discuss with them. So did you create within Lattitude the platform, kind of that framework?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that was the piece is I had so much frustration of not having a process, not having a place or a repository. Who can I reach out to? What do I discuss? Where do I pick up where we left off? I'm a big notebook guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a stack of, I think I'm up to like almost 75 of these things over the last 15 years. And it's really difficult if I haven't talked to somebody for 15 months, or hopefully it's not that long, but I'd love to pick up right where we left off. And I'd say I have a pretty solid memory, but I'm not that great. Yeah. And my, what's another quote that my grandpa used to say? He said, the brightest of minds are no challenge or competition for the sharp tip of a pencil.
Oh, that's a wonderful
always
quote.
Write things down. Yeah.
So the platform, then walk us through it. So if I am an employer, I've got 200 people in my organization and I want to create more energy.
It starts off with the leader saying, hey, we want to invest in our people. We want to increase connection. We want to retain talent. Those are the first things. And if you say yes to that, then okay, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
We'll do the, engagement surveys, evidence-based, research-backed, so we can get a baseline. If we can't measure it, we can't improve it. Learn that the hard way many times. So fantastic team that's been studying, this kind of work for over a decade, right? So that's the first piece. Let's measure where we are. And then let's put together a career map for everybody. How cool would it be, Dane? Say, hey, you got a couple thousand employees. You could even get into the tool yourself, pull up the report and say, all right, we've been using this Lattitude thing for about 6 months now.
Yeah.
92% of our people have a career map now. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Take it one step further. To have something is great, but what if we're not ever looking at it again? So of those 92% that have more than 0, 80% of them have gotten feedback on that career map in the last 6 months. Whoa, okay, nice. And then we think about taking it one step further. What if we had some open roles internally and see where we're going with this? Mm-hmm. And I say, hey, we have a director of procurement, for example, who wants to be in this role and who's able to be in this role. Yes. Last I checked, if you're able to drive down time to fill roles, That's a little bit of cost savings, right?
Yeah, it is.
If we can do it from internal, that helps with, that sense of belonging, a little bit of culture improvement, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe you need some external, juices and create, that's perfectly fine, but you're able to do this, internally. So that's part one. Part two. Part three is, now that I, have a bit of a plan, who do I share it with? And who do I get feedback? So the mentor match assessment is actually going to suggest a couple of different people for you to have a conversation with. Track the relationship, schedule the time together, and have your notes, your agenda items. We'll propose different things to discuss, so you're not scratching your head and say, all right, I said yes to this mentorship thing. We get into our, whether it's Zoom, Teams, Skype, what do we do now? Hey, Dane, I read this Pathfinders book by the Schramm guy, and you're supposed to be my mentor, and I don't really know what to do. So there's no more of that, right? There doesn't have to be any more of that. And so that's the big piece. Now, the same piece as a leader, you're able to understand how many mentoring conversations are taking place, how many goals in each of those relationships are being accomplished, achieved, coming to fruition. So bringing more, it's all about the ROI, right? Think about the world that I lived in before. It was all about profit and loss. And so if the work that we're doing right now isn't, easy for people to figure out, they don't see the benefit, others aren't on there, there's no clear ROI on this equation, it's going to be really difficult for me to say yes to something like that. How in the world is a busy organization going to spend their precious dollars on an investment like this?
Yes.
So make it easy. Communicate those pieces.
That's very cool.
And then one last piece, Dane. So we get all that, right? And so we got some cool data. We've engaged the people we have. We do this over time so we can retain them.
Yeah.
What if there was a way to brag about that and share those success stories internally and externally to attract great talent to our organization?
Yeah.
Wild concept, right? Wild idea.
So almost like a social media feed within the platform.
Well, that's up to the organization, because sometimes people, what I'll say is the talent attraction, talent acquisition is not all created equal. So we provide the social toolkit if they want to share it internally. Hey, look what's happening from a career development, mentorship, professional development lens. Hey, do you want to continue staying here, right? But then what do you want to share externally? Especially for, millennials and Gen Z, there's always that hand going up. What are you going to do for me? Right? And so more and more, I think, and that feeds into some of the teams of the future, right? What are the teams doing for one another in the future? How are they helping one another grow, develop, flourish?
Yeah, I love that. It actually reminds me of a piece of work that I did do with Jeffrey last year. We went to the National Conference of Healthcare Leadership, and we talked about mattering. And everyone talks about belonging, but not many people are talking about mattering yet. There's some cool books coming out soon, so watch this space. But the big difference between belonging and mattering is belonging is feeling like you're accepted, you fit in, where mattering is feeling like the work that you do is important and significant to those around you. And so that next step into mattering, I think, is becoming really critical. And in an organization, particularly a large organization where there's lots of different roles, different functions, new people coming in all of the time. There's some really cool work and some thinking around how do you take away all the nervous energy and anxiety of like, how do I fit in? How do I become important here? And actually create the right mentors or buddies to bring people into the way of working of the organization. So there's a big fit there with what I'm hearing Lattitude's doing as a platform.
So I wonder if we're going to get into mattering, belonging, inclusion, equity, diversity. We need another couple of letters so that we can have one word. I think we need, so we got a couple of vowels, so we'll have to figure out what other letters fit into this. So because it's starting to get to be too much of a mouthful if we put all these different pieces together. So we'll have to strategize of rebranding this, we're in it together. Everybody has a seat at the table, doing good. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if you're on board with this, off board with this, people helping people and getting different perspectives on this. That matters a lot, right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And with you and I touched on it pre-show, there's a lot of resistance and anger and all sorts of stuff being pointed at DEIB right now, which is misplaced in my belief system and experience. But maybe it's the language has become the problem rather than what people are trying to achieve. Like at its very essence, what you're talking about, serving people, helping people grow and flourish. To me, I look at that as like healthy and high impact teams, because it's not high performance. I think high performance has been overused in the last 20 years, and you can have a team that's performing very effectively, but their high performance may be leading to burnout, maybe leading to bad community outcomes. I think a truly healthy team that is high impact is actually contributing to human growth within the organization and within its, near community. So there's a lot to be seen in that movement, in my opinion.
And it changes we see this in, whether it's what's the trendy job title, right?
Yeah.
I want to be a management consultant. I want to be a product manager, product owner, right? There's, okay, what's going to be the, next thing, change management influencer, prompt engineering strategist. We'll see, where we go next. But this concept of, of people, all being able to be there is huge. And I think that aspect, and everything that we talked about, right? Where did we get to? We got to, at the end of the day, the business is around to make money.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to provide product, service, make money. And so if we can tie everything back to that, and I think that's where a lot of the DEIB efforts were, I'm not going to say they were there to check a box, but some of them were. And I think that's where the initial idea could be sound and could be good. Okay, cool. I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm. But then other people rushed and didn't think through it methodically enough. And they said, all right, there we go. Check the box. Boom, head forward. And then you're like, well, this is half-baked. I don't care if you say it's mentorship. I don't care if you say it's change management. Any kind of new initiative that's half-baked and you don't think about how it's going to tie to all the different outcomes and how it's going to get to the bottom line at the end of the day, and you don't put the necessary resources into it, it's probably going to flop. It's probably going to piss people off. It's probably going to, make people, leave and probably have bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you on that part. And the more anything we do, whether it's HR, operations, manufacturing, procurement, we got to tie it back to the business at the end of the day for utmost success.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. So when tying it into the business, you talked about doing the engagement survey there at the beginning of the platform experience on Lattitude. Once you start seeing those high percentages of career maps and feedback and mentorship and tying to jobs, how does that translate into impact for the business? Are you seeing survey scores lift? Are you seeing bottom line performance? Where is that?
Yeah, all the above. Yeah. So when surveys are done right, there's a lot that we can glean from them. You've probably been part of organizations where they say, we're going to do this survey. You get asked some questions, and then you maybe, what'd you find out? Like, well, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And don't you love it whenever you were asked 10 or 20 questions, for example, and you get results for 2?
Yeah.
You're like, and they're kind of middle of the road responses. You're like, and then what? Well, we'll get back to you. Crickets again. So ask the questions, make clear what those kind of the process timeline is, how to, consult and get feedback along the way. Hey, here's what we found in that survey. Here's what we're going to do next. And here's how this ties in to what's going on. So giving everybody a voice is very important. And then whenever we're able to say, hey, we're connecting, right? More people are learning about other pieces. I liken it to this, right? Whenever I'm able to build more connections, I think of it like a spider web. And what makes a web stronger? More of those connection points. And what happens with a stronger web is it's more difficult to displace it. Same thing with employee stickiness, right?
Yeah.
So the more connections is driving up that retention numbers. And I think some of the latest research is whenever you feel that connection, you're weaved into the organization, it's going to take 20% plus of a salary bump to get you to leave. I'll tell you, I was drinking the Kool-Aid so much. That web was strong with me in my first job. I turned down McKinsey, right? Yeah. And you're like, hold on a second. What do you mean, buddy? But I was in. I was all in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another piece of it. You can also look at whenever we have this done effectively, think about a welcome wagon, right? You might say, those people in their day one to end of year one, we might not be ready to put them into a mentorship program, but how can we help them assimilate and integrate beyond just that, day one, week one kind of piece of things?
Yeah.
And how they're able to get advice, guidance, and support to hit the ground running faster. So what are they able to do? Be more productive, do revenue generating activities so that they can, increase their performance, but more so, like you said, optimize their impact.
Yeah. And I also like if you're engaging those newer team members in the right way, we still learn, particularly with Gen Z coming into the workforce, we learn a lot from people who don't know a lot about the business because they're coming in with a cold eye review. So if you're engaging them the right way and they're having conversations with a few different people, and they feel comfortable, they're going to say, hey, Pete, why are you guys doing that this way? Or did you realize that makes me feel, a different way than I think you're expecting me to feel? So I think there's a lot of intel that comes from that cohort.
If it's made possible.
Yes.
And I think it comes down to the culture. Say, hey, do we have a open mind to continuous improvement? Are we allowing you to do this? Because there's been plenty of places where I'd raise my hand in a meeting. Put your hand down. This is a presentation, not a conversation. This is a dissertation, right? You're like, okay, sorry, I'll shut up. I'll never. Well, I would say other words, but a lot of people would be like, okay, I am totally checked out.
Totally.
Screw you.
Yeah. So being intentional about those frameworks. One question that jumps to mind as someone who's worked in HR for many years and understands what career development frameworks are. What is a career map?
So if everybody opens their workbook to page 7, or just gets a blank piece of paper in front of you, what we're going to do is on the left-hand side, go past, present, future. So we've created 3 different rows. And then across the top, we're going to write a couple of lines to create 5 new columns. Yeah. And what this is a past, present, future, where I've been, where I'm at, where I aspire to go. And then in those columns, we write in the job title, position, number 1. Number 2, we get into the skills needed for each of those.
Yeah.
The achievements and accomplishments that we're going for, the education and certifications that I might need, and some of the fun stuff. So we're able to visualize this in a couple of different capacities. Yeah. And you might say, well, I want to add in experiences. I want to add in values. I want to add in geography. I want to add in, salary. Okay, fine. I'm a big fan of, whenever I was in Hong Kong, I ran past this Bruce Lee statue. And then I started, learning more about him. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. And you might say, hey, Pete, I like some of what you have. Okay, cool. Absorb that. I wanted to put this in there. Cool. Add what is uniquely your own. I'm just going to give you some of what's worked and some of what's helpful. And I'm going to open up a quick page in the book here to show you what I put together as a starting point. So let's see. If you're watching the video, you can kind of see, right, the little piece of what that looks like. But it's just getting something on paper. That's super easy to then work with others. And you might say, I don't really know if I want to, tell people I'm going for another position. Fine, don't fill out column 1. Go fill out the other columns and work backwards.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very cool because it puts it in the hands of the individual in a way that, to your point, they get to determine what their path is. It's not like the traditional career development framework or model. It's like, hey, you have to go from X to Y to Z. So
that's one dimensional or 2-dimensional.
Yeah.
And so we're adding more dimensions because what happens whenever, X to Y to Z, what happens if, Z gets filled by somebody from the outside, or, you need another bunch of years to get to Z.
Yeah.
Rightfully so sometimes. But you're like, how else can I show progress, right? I want it now. Society, instantaneous gratitude. So I think that's a big piece for us to be able to meet people where they are.
That's very cool. And particularly when new job roles are popping up, technology's moving fast, side hustles are real, stretch projects are real. I think it creates a little bit more of an organic journey.
Throw some stretch projects on there. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. That's super cool. And then, as it comes back to the book, naturally you started to write the book after you started building the platform. What can our listeners expect to get if they get their hands on Pathfinders? Like, where is that taking them?
So these are other people's words, not mine. If you're late career, you're going to say, gosh, I wish I had this earlier in my career. Yes, that's what we were hoping they would say. And so what they'll do is provide it to their mid-level managers, to their new employees, part of that onboarding program, as a way to think about documenting and papering their journey, and thinking about those couple of different folks that can help support them along the way. If you're mid-career, you're like, shoot, this is great for me for a little bit of a refresh, revitalization of, what does my career look like? What is important to me?
Yeah.
I've been so stinking busy doing this work stuff. I haven't talked to my mentors in a minute.
Yeah.
Or like 60 minutes, right? And then early career, you see this and you're like, whoa, there is a chance. I do got a shot at this, right? I'm coming out of college. I'm 1, 2, 3 years into the professional working world. Let me put together one of these career maps. Let me, add a little bit of structure and process to this mentoring thing. And I walk into that first conversation, people are like, whoa, Dane, you got your stuff together.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, well, I got Pathfinders in my hands early enough, and, the rest is history.
That's
so people
cool.
have been providing really good feedback, and I'm extremely proud and grateful. And I'll also say, if reach out if you have other ideas and thoughts. We're working on a second edition, so by no means are things perfect in there. Let's keep making it better. You will see a shout out from Jeffrey in the first couple of pages of the book as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. It actually reminds me this way. I wrote down here, you said, paper your journey, and share it and get advice, have other people help you go on the rest of the journey or what's ahead. It reminds me, there was a really cool post this week from Mel Robbins, who's the author of, Just Let Them, I think it is.
Yeah.
And on her podcast, she had this guy, James Doty, on there, and they were talking about the importance of like writing something down and saying it to yourself and having that belief, and it helps create that manifestation. So that's really powerful in and of itself.
It feeds into the psychology of it. I'm going to take that one step further because I was researching this prior to that podcast coming out. The numbers are 40% plus of us are more likely to achieve our goals when we write them down. We can increase that number and say, hey, it's more than 30% likely to achieve your goals when you write them down and share them with others and provide progress over time.
Yeah.
Why not make it easy to do that for something that we spend ballpark 1/3 of our, hours on this planet?
Years or something else. It's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of, YouTubers that are coming up in the ranks and they're going to retire early. So, they don't. I'm going to work 10 to 3 and 3 days a week and I'll be set.
The good life.
for 5 years. Yeah.
The good life. No, that's super cool, Pete. So final question really is this, which is, if more companies out there are embracing this career mapping, personal board of advisors, mentorship program, using Lattitude or leaning on what's in the Pathfinders book, what does that look like in the future of teamwork? What type of energies or behaviors do you see showing up on teams in 5 or 10 years' time that have adopted that well?
An optimized team of teams for the biggest possible impact. We're going to have people learning from others, up, down, side to side. We're going to have a little bit more of an openness to new thought, diverse perspectives, ways of doing things. Over the last 5 years, we've learned to, work asynchronously. I think we're going to do more of that when appropriate.
Yeah.
We've learned how to do more of this virtual communication, right? If I was to hop in the car and drive to you right now, it'd take me about 26 hours to get there. Yeah. It's a whole lot easier to press log in, sign on, change my name, allow my audio and video, boom. Yeah. So it took me like 26 seconds instead, right? I'm all for, what is that, 1/3600th of the time. And so I think we're going to be more open to that. I do think we have to show what's possible and emphasize experience and aptitude. Where people can go determines their altitude, right? Yeah. Rather than just butts in seats and time.
Yeah.
And, you haven't been here for 8 years, so you cannot do this thing yet. Because there's the other statistic. What is it? There's, 10 million fewer people in this next generation that's filling in for the people that are retiring. So this is a numbers game right now, and saying, hey, if we don't invest in our people, we got to figure something out. AI is going to help. I think that's, A-okay. So embracing this new mindset. And like we talked about before the show, right? Teams of the future are going to be more diverse and, kind of the who's on the team, what they're doing, how they're operating, and their why, what motivates them. Yeah. And it's going to be different at different phases. So we got a whole lot to look forward to.
Tons. Yeah. I love the way that you optimize for biggest possible impact. I really like that. Well, Pete, it's been a wonderful conversation. Looking forward to teaming up with you on a number of future collaborations. But if any of our listeners want to find Lattitude, find the book Pathfinders, or find you, where should they go searching?
Follow Dane on LinkedIn, and then you'll be able to get a little bit closer to where I'm tagged from there, but LinkedIn's the best way. Awesome. That'll take you to the book. It'll take you to the website. But please, if you got to this point in the podcast, leave a comment, add a follow. Dane and the team put a lot of work into this. So that's the most important piece, is to say thank you, so that he, those little pieces of support are good motivators to keep doing this, right? It's not easy. But yeah, LinkedIn's the easiest way.
Awesome, Pete. Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for your time.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for joining us. Remember that by embracing vulnerability, trusting our intuition, and approaching challenges with compassion, we not only strengthen our teams, but also pave the way for a future where collaboration thrives. If you're hungry for more insights, strategies, and research on collaboration, head over to thefutureofteamwork.com. There, you can join our mailing list to stay updated with the latest episodes and get access to exclusive content tailored to make your team thrive. Together, we can build the future of teamwork. Until next time.